All right, so we are still moving through Exodus. We are at chapter 4. This one is verses 1 through 31. Sorry, I want to make sure I had it right. This is Exodus, second book of the Bible, 4th chapter, verses 1 through 31. And in chapter 3, Moses has an encounter with the burning bush and gets to have a conversation with God, where he is charged with being the vehicle God is going to use to deliver the people from Egypt. And in that, God gives him the words to say to Pharaoh, and that is in chapter 3, verse 18. And it says, to tell the king of Egypt, the Lord God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us go. And we hear, let my people go all the time, but there's another part to it. We beseech thee 3 days journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to our Lord, the Lord our God. And what he is saying here is, go tell Pharaoh that I said, let y'all go so y'all can travel for 3 days to worship. He didn't say, let my people go, they never coming back. He said, tell him to let them go to worship. And we're going to dig deep into that very soon in these conversations that we have with Pharaoh in future chapters. But in chapter 4, it starts off with Moses answering God and saying, but what if they don't believe me? He said, who am I supposed to say sent me? And he got his I am that I am statement. He asked what he was supposed to do, how he was going to get them to come. He was given the script. And he was like, but what if they don't believe me? What if they don't believe me? What if they don't believe me? And he says again, what if they don't listen and say that God didn't really appear to me? They going to say, nah, he lying. He a false prophet. And so God tells him, ask him, what's in your hand? He's like, what you got? And so he says, I have my rod. And God says, throw it down. And he throws it down and it turns into a snake. And he runs. Moses is scared. He knew that was a rod in his hand a second ago. He is talking to a burning bush, and yet throwing down a stick that turns into a snake terrifies him, and he runs off. He runs from a snake. If we hear, like when we talk about David and Goliath, and I know that's books forward, but we talk about David and Goliath. David was fighting bears and lions as a young boy, and Moses is out here running from a snake. But there was still fear in his heart. He still was unsure of what's going on. He is holding a conversation with the Lord our God, and he still is afraid, even in the presence of God, of the thing that God is even doing right now, because God told him to throw the stick down, and he did. And so God was like, come on, Moses, come on now. Gather yourself, sir. Don't run like that in front of the people. Don't do that. I'm glad you got that out your system. Don't run like that in front of the people. He said, pick it up by its tail. And so Moses reaches and picks it up, and it turns back into his rod. And that rod is, of course, the very big kind of walking stick that we see in the illustrations. He's a shepherd, so it's going to have a curved end so that he can kind of scoop them sheep up when they get into weird spots. Or if they starting to get away from him too quick, he can kind of yoke them and get them back. It's that type of device. So it's not just a stick. And so Moses said, and so the Lord is still dealing with him. He was like, okay, now, you still worried about what they're going to say. I know your heart, and you guys still got some doubt in there. Let's work that out. Put your hand inside your jacket. And so when he put his hand inside his jacket to his skin, he pulled it out. His hand was leprous. Leprosy is a disease that plagued them and was contagious and caused all types of issues. Leprosy is still modern day exists. Treatable, very different type of situation. But at this time, it was terrifying for you to have a leprous hand, because now you have to be kind of exiled from your people, because this is contagious, and it can inflict or infect. That's the word I'm looking for. Sorry. It can infect groups of people. And so he put his hand in, and it came out leprous. And God said, put it back in again. So he put it back inside of his shirt, and he pulled it out again. And this time it was correct. It was cured. So God showed him, look, put your hand in and take it out. God is showing him signs. He's giving him signs to show him that this is me. I'm God. This is not somebody else. You're not out here talking to yourself. You're not having a little fever dream hallucinating. It's me. And these are signs that I'm giving you, things that you can now do. I'm putting a little bit of my spirit on you so that you can do these things when you get in front of the Israelite leaders, so that they have signs as well. And so he put his hand in, came out leprous, put it back in, and it came out. And this time it was just like his other flesh. It was even again. He was fine. And what he says in verse 8, God says, if they don't believe you, and they don't believe the first sign, and they don't believe the second sign. So if you tell them what I say, tell them, and they still don't believe you, and then you throw down your rod and you pull it, and it turns into a snake, and you pick it back up and turns back into a rod. If they don't believe that, and they don't believe, if you put your hand in and take it out, you have leprosy, and you put it back in and take it out, and it is fine. If they don't believe all these signs, then what I want you to do is take water from the Nile and pour it on dry land. You're going to have water in this cup, this vase, this basin, whatever you use to scoop the water out. It'll be water in there. And when you pour it on the ground, it'll turn into blood on the dry land. Not mixed with nothing, just turn to blood on the dry land. Not a little red clay got into it and the color changed, but literally it pours out as blood. And so verses 10 through 13 is kind of my favorite little passage. He is still arguing with God. He is still arguing and fussing and deciding that he's not qualified for this. And this is, oh my God, what we do. I do it. I will regularly be like, come on, God, I'm not that person. I'm not pretty enough for that. I am too big or too small. I am too tall. I'm too short. I don't have the right education. I don't have the right words. I don't have the right look. I will tell God all types of things about me to tell God that he can't send me. God is like, you done talking yet? Because this is ridiculous. Go do it, I said to. And verses 10 through 13 are basically that conversation. Moses says to God, I'm not eloquent. I'm not eloquent. I'm not a wordsmith. I don't have a way with the words. And he says, I'm slow of speech and of a slow tongue. Now, lots of people like to say Moses had a stutter. I don't think Moses had a stutter, because they record all types of missteps and mayhaps and things for other people throughout the Bible where they have faults. And I don't see them record these faults anywhere else. I don't see that he has a stutter, because the book of Deuteronomy is literally Moses giving a 20-something chapter speech. And that just don't sound like stuttering to me. It doesn't sound like, unsure. It's not 20-something chapters. It's like 30-something chapters. Like, it's a long book of Moses. It's just Moses' speech for 34 chapters, 35, 36, I think 35. But it's a long, long book of Moses speaking to the people, unhindered, like unencumbered, no stuttering, no people saying, come on, man, like slow down. He said all of the words. It's not like it took him a day to get out, this particular long speech. He just talks and talks and talks. And this is not a letter written down. It is not any of those things. It is literally him talking. I do not think that he had a stutter. What I do think is he was raised Egyptian and was around people who spoke a language different from his for the early years of his life. He knew he was Hebrew, so he knew the Hebrew language, but he's not fluent in it. And then he has now lived all these years in Midian with another culture, and it's a different language again. So I feel like instead of him being fluent in all of his languages, he is more fluent in the one that he uses currently. And so his issue is, I have a slow tongue, meaning I don't translate well. I don't speak clearly. I use all types of weird words because I know the language, but I don't know the language. Like, I can speak the language, but I'm not fluent. And if I'm going to go talk to Pharaoh, I need to be fluent. If I'm going to talk to these leaders, I need to be fluent. They're not going to understand me trying to piece together, half Hebrew, half English, half Arabic. Like, I can't mix up these languages. And so I think that this was him saying, not that I have a stutter, because he's holding a conversation with God. God would have identified the stutter by now. If it was a concern of God, God would have fixed the stutter by now. I don't think he's referencing that. I think what he in fact is referencing is the fact that he does not speak the language well. He doesn't translate well. I haven't spoken Hebrew in years. I haven't spoken the language of the Egyptians in years. And even when I was speaking Hebrew, I spoke Egyptian more. I'm just not good with all these languages. I got Spanish, French, and English mixed in here. I translate poorly. And I think that is what he is saying here. It's not that he has a stutter. I don't think he has a stutter. I think that what he has is a translation issue. He translates slowly, so he can't speak fluently the languages that he needs to speak. And that's a concern. And so God is like, who made your mouth? Like, who made anybody? Like, who put this together? If you were blind, if you were deaf, are these things I could not handle? Like, you talking about little stuff. I'm talking about big stuff here. And I could have changed that. I called you. I wanted you to do it. And these are rhetorical questions because he doesn't get an answer. Moses had enough sense to just shut up at this point. And so he said, I'll go with you and I'll teach you what to say. Not I'll fix your stutter, but I'll teach you what to say. I'll give you the words. I'll help you to understand and learn how to speak to the people. I'll teach you what to say. And he says, God, I pray that you send somebody to do this. Like, he's saying, I pray that by the hand of him, who will you send? Send somebody else, God. Get somebody else to do it. At this point, he's not even making an excuse. He's like, look, could you just get somebody else? Because I don't feel confident in this. In verse 14, God was like, you on my nerves, Moses. This is foolishness. Look, you got a brother. He's a Levite. Aaron, he can talk. Like, he can talk for you. Since you so scary, since you can't just listen, since you can't let me do this thing for you, get Aaron to do it. Since you so worried about who can say what, Aaron can say it. That's your brother, right? He can say it. He said, I'll speak to him and I'll put my words in his mouth and he'll be your spokesperson. Since you too scary to talk, you going to stand there and look crazy. You going to let you, now we got to have a third party when it was me and you. Stop being scary. Stop being scary, Moses. Stop being scary. And so he said, take your rod, go and do what I told you to do. Go on to Egypt and let's get this party started. Let's do this thing. And so Moses goes to his father-in-law, Jethro, who has taken care of him all these years, who has been there and will be there with him and his children kind of throughout this journey. By his children, I mean Moses with his wife and his child. Jethro, the father-in-law, has been there and continues to be a part of his life. And so Jethro, he's like, can I go to Egypt? God told me to go. And Jethro was like, sure thing, boss. Do what the Lord told you to do. Don't let me stand in your way. Go and do what God told you to do. Go and free your people. Like, do your thing. And so the Lord says to Moses, go. And he tells him in verse 19 that all the men who sought your life are now dead. I let you sit out here in this wilderness running scared and hiding and being a fugitive. But everybody who was looking for you is dead. Ain't nobody looking for you no more. You've been out here long enough. Don't nobody even know who you are anymore. You running from a ghost at this point. And you in hiding for no reason. And so Moses takes his wife and his children. They start this path back to Egypt. They start walking their way back to Egypt. And so verse 21, the Lord says to Moses, when you get there, when you do the wonders that I put before you, remember I told you it was going to be hard. I'm reminding you that there's going to be difficulty. Don't quit on me. I'm going to harden Pharaoh's heart so that he won't let the people go. I have to do it this way. I have to do it. But what I want you to tell him is, here's the secret combo. This your finishing move right here. You can let my firstborn go or I'll take yours. Israel is my firstborn son. This is the child. This is my people. These are the ones that I grew up from one man who was obedient, Abraham. I grew a family through him. and it's mine. It belongs to me, and I'm coming to take it back. And if you won't give it to me, I'm going to take yours from you. And so, verse 23, it says, let my son go that he may serve me. And if you refuse, I will slay your son, even your firstborn. This is what he was told to tell Pharaoh. Here's how this thing gonna end. You're gonna do what I'm asking you to do, or you're gonna lose everything in the process. And that's what it was. So verses 24 through 26. It's a short passage. This right here makes Zipporah a hero in my eyes. And God wrote this passage down on purpose. It says, and it came to pass by the way that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. He sent an angel after him to kill Moses. He said, Moses, I want you to go to Egypt. I want you to do all these things. And Moses said, cool, let's go. And he gets down there and he is on his way. And God sends an angel to kill him on the way. And that seems really counterproductive. But Zipporah took a sharp stone and circumcised her sons. She knew what to do. She circumcised her sons. Sharp stone, very, very sorry. It sounds painful. And showed the foreskin that was removed as proof of them being in covenant. And that is what stopped the angel that God sent to kill Moses. And she complained, like, sir, you, she called him a bloody husband. You messed this thing up. We could have been in a whole different position because of your disobedience. And nobody sees and understands because it's not all the words here. But if you go way, way back to Abraham was asked to circumcise everyone that was a part of his family, his tribe that was growing, servants and everybody. Circumcise them all. That circumcision is a covenant between us. That means you're my people. It's a covenant. And they were told to circumcise their sons at 8 days old as a covenant. Every time a child is born, this is going to bring them in covenant with me. This puts them underneath the umbrella of my coverage, the umbrella of my protection, the umbrella of my family. This right here is what is an outward sign that they wear of an inward decision, this circumcision. And because he was separated from his parents fairly young, and raised in an Egyptian household as a Hebrew, but in an Egyptian household, he may not have carried on this custom. The fact that his sons had not been circumcised show that he did not do it the way God told him to do it. He was not. Now, his mother probably had him circumcised, but he did not have his son circumcised. And so, this angel was sent to kill him because he was moving and operating in a way that was not correct. When God gives us an assignment, it doesn't matter how well you want to do it or how you want to carry it out or how you want to live your life. You have to do it the way God told you to. You do not get to remix it and decide, I can be ratchet and righteous. The two don't go together. You don't get to decide that everything is a sin but this one thing that I like doing. And so I'm going to keep it because it's okay. God knows my heart. God knew Moses' heart. That's why he sent him. God knew what was inside of Moses and a call on his life, which is why he called him and sent him. But he also knew he was out of order. He had not done the single simple thing that he was asked to do, and that's bring his sons into covenant. At this point, they don't have Christ. They don't have the Holy Spirit abiding in them. They don't have those things that kind of give you a separate, change the way God looks at you. But she understood, you are outside of the covenant that God gave you. You cannot walk into here as a Hebrew and y'all are looking like y'all not Hebrews. You can't walk into here and you're doing it a way opposite than the way that God told you to do. You had to get right, and Zipporah got it right, and she was hot about it because her baby had to suffer a little bit because of it, and she was not happy. So in verse 27, that's kind of happening as they travel, also while they're traveling. So these things aren't like event 1, event 2, event 3. This is like things that have happened over the course of their travel. And God talks to Aaron and said, hey, I want you to go into the wilderness. Go and meet your brother. Moses is coming. I got to work for him going out. And so they go and meet in the wilderness. And while they're there, Moses tells Aaron everything that God told him to say and do, showed him all the signs and all of that stuff. And Aaron believes. He already believed because God told him to go, and he hopped himself up and went on to travel to meet this brother that he has not seen in years. They were raised separately, but they knew each other. Moses knew his brother Aaron, and Aaron knew that he had a brother Moses and went to go meet him in the wilderness. So this was not some like he was raised Egyptian and didn't know he was Hebrew. He did. He knew his family. Miriam is the little girl that was at the water when he was out there. He knew his family, and he is reunited with them then. And so verses 29 through 31, Moses and Aaron gather all the elders like God said. They tell them what God said, and they show them the signs, and they bow their heads and they worship God because the time of their affliction is coming to an end. The time of their oppression is coming to an end, and they worship God for it. They see the signs and they know and they believe. They heard, I am that I am sent Moses, and they have a plan of action. They heard everything and they're ready to go. And they're grateful for God hearing their prayers and their cries, and they begin to worship him for that. So, chapter 4 recap. Moses is questioning God and sending him. What if they don't believe me? What if they don't trust me? What if they don't know? And God gives him 3 signs. He tells him to throw his rod down. It turns into a snake, and he can pick it back up and it turns back into a rod. The second sign is that he can put his hand inside of his shirt. It'll pull it out. It'll show up leprous, like obvious that there's leprosy here. And then it'll be diseased, and he'll put it back in and take it out, and it'll be normal again. And the third sign is that he would be able to pull water out of the Nile. It'll be water in the vase. It'll be blood as it pours onto the ground. And these are the signs that he's going to show the people so that they believe who he is. And then Moses, he's still scary. He's still shaking in his boots. And he was like, I don't know about this. I feel maybe very inadequate. I feel like I can't do this. I have a slow tongue. I'm slow to speech. I'm not eloquent. I'm not a wordsmith. I'm not good in public situations. And God was like, I made your mouth, man. I can make you deaf. I can make you blind. I can make you none of those things. Why are you worried about this? I'm going to teach you how to talk. I'm going to teach you the words. Like, I'm going to tell you what to say, and you're going to say it, and it's going to work out. And Moses is still like, hey, could you send somebody else, please? And thank you, respectfully. And God was like, look, just go meet your brother. You got a brother named Aaron. He's a Levite. Go meet him, and he's going to be your spokesperson. I'm sick of you, Moses. Just do what I told you to do. You had an opportunity for greatness, and you in here being scary. And so he goes back home because he's out with the sheep right now. He goes back home. He tells his father-in-law what God told him, and his father-in-law sends him. He asks if he can go see about his family, and his father-in-law was like, yeah, do you think, friend, you're not held hostage here? We can cover you some shifts and your shepherding shifts. I can cover that for you, and go see about your family. And God tells him, hey, everybody that was looking for you when you left as a fugitive, they're all dead. Nobody even remembers your offense. So you're free from it. You're free from it. Nobody even remembers that it happened. And so he packs up everybody. He takes it and get on the road. As they're journeying, several things happen. One, God tells him, when you get to Pharaoh, here's a message for Pharaoh. This isn't for everybody to hear. This is a message for Pharaoh. And I want you to tell him that Israel is my firstborn. This is the family that I created that was going to worship me and is going to take care of me. And I've come back to claim them. And if you won't give them to me to worship me in the way that I said, then I'm absolutely going to take your firstborn for me. You can give me mine, or I can take everything you love in the process. The other thing is, while they were traveling, Moses had not brought his children into the covenant by having them circumcised. He was outside of the parameters and the rules that God had given him. He had to get that cleaned up and fixed. And so as they're traveling, this angel comes to kill him, and Zipporah realizes what's going on. Her father is a priest, a believer in God. And even though Midian kind of goes back and forth on what they believe, this man is a man of God. And so she understood what was happening. She righted the situation and circumcised the sons and brought them into covenant with God, brought Moses into a position of obedience to God. And that happens. And then the other thing is that God tells Aaron to go meet your brother Moses in the wilderness. And they sit and they have a meeting and they talk, and he tells them what his mission is. And he believes. And then they go back. So they finally do reach Egypt, and they get to the Israelites, and they call the elders and they tell the elders what's going on, what God told them. And they believe and they worship God and thank him for bringing them out. They are still in the same situation. Just at this point, the car has arrived. It ain't opened no doors. Nothing has happened. People haven't worked out who's going to sit where. People haven't gotten in the car. None of the things have happened. But right now, the car has arrived. The vehicle has shown up that it's going to be the way that God, the thing that God uses to free them. And they worship God for hearing their cry and listening and responding to them. So I just want you all to remember, I don't know why this stuck out to me at that point, but your accusers are gone. Your accusers are gone. You still running like a fugitive. You're still scared and afraid, and you're still, lingering and tiptoeing through life and not being the best you possible because you're afraid somebody's going to see you and they're going to remember who you were. Your accusers are gone. Go be free. Go be free to do what God called you to do. Be free to grow. Be free to smile, to laugh. Your accusers are gone. Ain't nobody left. All right, y'all. Be blessed.